This episode features Jessica seeking diversion from disappointment in New York, Amy teaching Lindy how to barrel race, Logan's father arriving at Heartland, Katie getting her ears pierced, and Lou and Katie getting into a fight over Katie's decision. Lindy expressed interest in becoming a barrel racer as Amy, Lindy, Tim, and Caleb were watching a competition at the rodeo grounds at the start of the episode. Caleb and Amy took Lindy to meet Sherry Wild, a legendary barrel racer who now owns her own barrel racing school. But Sherry then informed the group that she was going to sell the school. Caleb was intrigued by that because he believed that purchasing Sherry's school would be an excellent way for Tim to expand his rodeo school. But since Caleb and Tim are die-hard cowboys, Sherry assumed that they would view barrel racing as a subpar rodeo event and wouldn't even want to consider them as potential buyers. But Caleb was unaffected by that. He reasoned that by becoming a barrel racer himself, he could demonstrate to Sherry that he is serious about taking over her barrel racing school. And in order to do that, Caleb asked Amy to show him how. Their work started the following day. Caleb picked up the fundamentals quickly, but he wasn't exactly a barrel racing natural. As a result, despite having a 5-second advantage when Caleb raced Sherry for the school, he lost. Fortunately, Sherry observed how well-behaved Tim was with Lindy prior to their brief race. Together with Caleb's achievements in the barrel race, Sherry ultimately made the decision to sell the school to Caleb and Tim. On Heartland Season 16 Episode 8, Caleb wasn't the only one learning to barrel race. The fever for barrel racing also swept over Lindy. However, Amy's plan for training Lindy to barrel race wasn't quite coming to fruition. Amy patiently taught Lindy the fundamentals of riding Harley in one of the pens at the ranch as the teaching process got off to a good start. Tim wasn't pleased, though, when he spotted Lindy practicing on Harley. Tim wanted Lindy to have the best of the best because, in his opinion, if Lindy has even a small amount of the Fleming rodeo genes, she will pick up barrel racing quickly, and Harley will prevent her from improving quickly. Harley wasn't a barrel horse. Tim then went and purchased Willow for Lindy. Tim believed Willow, a retired barrel racer, would make Lindy's first horse and would be the ideal choice for Lindy. Of course, Amy wasn't immediately persuaded. Lindy had just finished her first lesson in barrel racing that morning, after all. Tim insisted nonetheless that Lindy give Willow a shot. Tim became impatient and persuaded Amy to let Lindy take a turn on Willow after she had tried to stall for as long as she could under the pretense of making sure Willow is safe for Lindy to ride. It went horribly, too. Lindy was so alarmed by Willow's sudden transition from a leisurely trot to a full-on gallop that she decided against continuing the barrel race. Tim made an effort to persuade Amy to force Lindy to immediately mount a horse. But Amy requested Tim to return Willow since she was aware of what was best for her kid. Fortunately, Amy and Tim had an open discussion about what had happened later that day, and they were able to close the day on a positive note. The following day, Tim took Lindy around the arena on Caleb's horse to pique her interest in racing and offered her an apology for purchasing a horse that was too fast for her. Tim accompanied Lindy the entire time. With Amy and Logan by her side and the rest of the family supporting her from the sidelines, Lindy got back in the saddle as the episode came to a close. Logan had to make some significant decisions regarding his future after his dad, Greg, was freed on parole, thus this most recent episode was very significant for him. Logan's father surprised him early on in the episode by unexpectedly turning up at the property. Greg apparently decided not to notify Logan about his parole hearing because he didn't want Logan to get too excited. But now that Greg was a free man, he had to go visit his son as soon as possible. Of course, Logan was taken aback by that. He also appeared to be unsure about how to behave and what to do in front of his father. Logan and Greg attended the family dinner at Jack's invitation, and the family even extended an invitation for Greg and Logan to spend a few nights in a cabin at the Dude Ranch. Logan was shocked by Greg's next surprise, which was that he had employment waiting for him and Logan back in Nova Scotia. Logan was taken off guard by that, just like Greg's appearance. Particularly now that Logan has established a successful life for himself and Hudson over the past year or two. Logan therefore discussed his desire to speak in Hudson with his father the following morning. Greg was a little stunned by that, so he began talking about his future plans for his son once he was granted parole in Nova Scotia. Greg would look for a job in the Hudson area so he may be close to his kid, but after recognizing his error, he apologized to Logan for being selfish and told Logan that neither he nor his son are leaving. But just when Logan thought everything was coming together, he overheard his father chatting to one of his old friends, the following morning the same person who is to blame for Greg's imprisonment. Logan consequently believed he had no choice but to consent to moving to Nova Scotia with his father. He even informed Amy of his choice, who was naturally unhappy with it but was unable to change it because it was Logan's decision. However, Tim had a conversation with Greg immediately before Caleb and Sherry's race, and fortunately, that seemed to make Greg realize that perhaps going to Nova Scotia wasn't the best course of action for both of them. Greg informed Amy that Logan wasn't actually moving the following day. Logan will travel to Nova Scotia for about a week to assist Greg in settling in before returning to Hudson to continue working with Amy and at the youth center. Logan's situation seems to be improving at last, and I'm excited to see what the remainder of the season has in store for him. Lisa also had a difficult time with Heartland season 16 episode 8 because she ran into some unanticipated issues with her company. We saw Lisa get out of the car at the start of the episode, all upset. Naturally, Jack hurried to his wife's side, and Lisa informed him of the situation at that time. Platinum Bo has sustained significant damage. Platinum Bo reportedly couldn't bear any weight on his leg yesterday when Lisa and her team went to pick him up for training. Lisa's veterinarian was equally clueless about the situation. It might be anything from a torn ligament to a shattered bone, which would put an end to the horse's racing career. Lisa was quite upset that Platinum Bo might no longer be able to compete in races. Additionally, the constant pressure from her investors for updates only made Lisa's situation worse. In the end, the abscess in the horse's hoof was brought on by a stone bruise. This implied that Platinum Bo will soon be back on the track, keeping Lisa's investors happy. Additionally, Lisa seems to have taken stock of her priorities as a result of the whole ordeal with Platinum Bo. Lisa misses a lot of significant occasions with her family because she is gone from them so much. Lisa consequently informed Jack at the end of the episode that she wants to make some adjustments to her company due to the stress this scenario with the horse and her investors brought her. Tim had to be a supportive husband in this episode because Jessica needed it more than ever, in addition to reviewing the records to determine whether the rodeo school expansion would be a smart decision and going overboard when it comes to Lindy learning to barrel race. Jessica had to start deciding what her next moves in terms of her photography were now that the two had returned from New York. She actually had to decide whether to pursue her love despite the criticism or to find a new career because, as we saw in episode 6, her art display was a failure. And towards the beginning of the episode, it appeared that she might go with choice 2 because she was assisting Lou by taking over as the manager of the Dude Ranch and even considering offering Lou some suggestions on how they could increase the Dude Ranch's marketing. Ezra then called her and offered her a new photography job, taking pictures for a major designer's ad campaign, Grayson Bolt. Jessica's initial reaction was to decline it after the setback in New York. And despite Tim's encouragement for Jessica to seize this important chance, she remained averse to sending her work to the designer. To remind Jessica of how talented she is and persuade her to apply for the photography job Ezra was offering, Tim made the decision to take matters into his own hands and put together a portfolio of Jessica's greatest images. Jessica first refused to even glance at the photos Tim had printed. But the next morning, she did sneak a peek out of curiosity, and it instantly made her remember why she wanted to make a profession out of photography. Jessica reluctantly agreed to submit her work to the designer after she confided in Tim that this opportunity reminded her of New York because Ezra was getting another one of his friends to validate Jessica's work. Tim then persuaded her that this might actually be a legitimate chance to showcase her talent. At the end of the episode, we saw Jessica receive the Grayson Bolt ad campaign, proving that Tim's efforts had paid off. Apparently, Jessica's work was exactly what the designer was looking for. Additionally, the plot of Katie wishing to get her ears pierced from episode 7 continued in episode 8. The relationship between Katie and Lou has been tumultuous for the entirety of this season and even the season before it. And this episode kept up the trend. The episode's opening scene had Katie showing Lisa the earrings she had chosen and asking Lou if they were still planning to pierce Katie's ears first thing tomorrow. Being the workaholic she is, Lou agreed, but it was difficult to tell if she understood what she was committing to because she was so preoccupied with her phone. As a result, when Katie was prepared to leave the following morning, Lou cancelled because he had to go to a mayoral meeting. Lou naturally made the promise to pick up Katie as soon as the conference was over, but it took longer than expected, so Lou called to reschedule. Since Katie is a disobedient teenager, she tricked Lisa into taking her to the city by saying Lou had asked her to work a shift at Maggie's. Katie then got her ears pierced. Lou found it strange when Katie showed up downstairs the following morning wearing a beanie. And when Lou requested Katie to remove it to avoid heat exhaustion, after all, it is summer, it exposed Katie's freshly pierced ears. Lisa then understood why Katie had actually asked her to drive her to Hudson. Lou then called Katie outside so she could reprimand her. Lou was unable to accept Katie's deception. Katie, however, had a strong counter-argument as well. Lou did back out of their plans yesterday. And that rapidly turned into Katie accusing Lou of neglecting her and spending more attention to Georgie than to her. Though Lou has recently been either working, spending time with Peter in Vancouver, or in Florida with Georgie, Katie does have a point. And Lou seems to be aware of this as well, as she later apologized to Katie for neglecting her daughter. The two exchanged hugs, and maybe Lou will try to see Katie more often going forward. Because it appears that Katie is only pulling these tricks to get her mother to pay her more attention, as seen by her going river rafting with Logan and now getting her ears pierced.